How did U.S. companies become so dependent on Chinese manufacturing?
Well, the Chinese Communist Party had a deliberate strategy to make that happen. China tries to portray itself as the workshop of the world. You hear Wall Street financiers, you read writers in publications like Financial Times, The Economist, just up to a few months ago. They glibly and without even thinking twice accepted the idea of China being the workshop of the world. Well, now we see the dangers of that. So on one hand, you had China deliberately using subsidies, using tax breaks. They went, and other devices like that. For example, they went to Foxconn, the contract manufacturer that does a lot of the assembly work for Apple, iPhones, things like that, iPads, different gadgets. And they said that the government in Shenzhen said, we will build you a factory. We will build the factory. Next to the factory will be the dormitories where the workers in the factory will live. We will build that and provide it to you. All you have to do is do your manufacturing here. And this is an example of the type of subsidies, incentives that they offered in order to lure companies to come manufacture, make the products in China. On the other side of the equation, the counterparty to these negotiations were Wall Street financiers who had control over the multinational companies like Apple, like others, other manufacturing entities, who were looking to maximize shareholder value. They were looking for short-term profits, short-term maximization of the stock price. They were looking to cut costs in every way. Now, it wasn't just labor costs that they were cutting. They were also outsourcing a lot of the R&D, a lot of the engineering know-how was being outsourced. It's one thing to say designed in California, manufactured in China. So they had a couple of top-level engineers in California designing the new gadget, the new iPhone, the new app that'll go on the iPhone, et cetera, et cetera. But so far as the engineering know-how of the logistics management to make sure that all the parts arrived on time, the line engineers to keep the assembly lines running, this type of day-to-day constant improvement, constant refinement of engineering, that too was being outsourced to China. When that happens, you really cripple a country's ability to regain that know-how because this is human capital. So on one hand, you had China with a deliberate strategy saying, we will give you cheap stuff, but we will capture the technology and the know-how for manufacturing. On the other side, you had people saying, I just want cheap stuff. So I will get short-term profits, but long-term, I will lose the ability to do that manufacturing. I will lose the know-how, as well as, you know, the bricks and mortar factories and infrastructure. So it was a very dangerous combination. The Chinese have a long-term plan. On the other side, you have very short-term thinking on the part of some executives in this country and on Wall Street, who, by the way, they don't see themselves as American. They see themselves as global corporations. They bought into this whole idea of we're going to have a borderless world, and it's kind of wishful thinking that served them well financially, but we now see the dangers of the whole setup.
So you really put a lot of the blame on Wall Street for being greedy. You know, you sound a little like Bernie Sanders.
There is a definite look. The old maps of left and right don't